Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I want to be dissertating and talking about how to learn astrology. Now, many of you that watch my videos consistently, I would imagine have a fairly profuse knowledge of astrology and know it extensively. Many of you know your natal charts and you know the meanings of a lot of things, a lot of the nuances in it, the aspects, and what a sign on a house cusp may mean, and planets and houses, planets and signs, etc. But for the few of you that pretty much know your sun sign, but you don't really have much conception of anything else regarding your chart, this is what I would suggest. Now, the first thing, you may want to get a very strong understanding of your sun sign firstly before you do anything. If you already have one, if you have fairly extensive knowledge of the meaning of your sun sign as far as the characteristics and attributes of it go, then really what you can do is I would actually, a lot of people think this might be going too fast as far as getting to this point in the learning process of astrology, but you may want to have your astrological chart calculated. Now, you're not going to understand the meaning of all those things right away when you initially do it, but the thing is, I would find out your moon sign and find out your rising sign, because at least in my opinion, the sun, moon, and ascendant are the three biggest proponents in one's natal chart as far as determining the personality and the character of the person. The sun is pretty much our inner self. The moon represents our emotional needs. It's often connected with reactions based on things perhaps in our subconscious or things that happen in our early childhood, and comes out in that pretty much in that manner. The moon can give very strong personality traits of that sign that it resides in. Now, the ascendant is, I really see that as the dominant point in one's chart as far as the outer projection, the outer demeanor and characteristics one presents, and many people feel they actually resonate more with their rising sign or ascendant as opposed to their sun sign and even their moon sign as well. And some people may feel that they actually exhibit more characteristics of their moon sign than their sun sign. So the sun, moon, and ascendant, I would get a chart calculated. You can go to cafeastrology.com and get it calculated. And probably not pronouncing this right, I would also go to, it's a site called Astrodine or something similar to that, and you can go to that website and you can get your chart calculated. Now, I know Cafe Astrology gives a lot of delineations on the planets and signs and houses, and can give you very extensive information on that. I would learn, and when you know your sun, moon, and ascendant, and if you're that person that likes to look at your daily horoscope, you can look at the three signs. It can be up to three signs. Now, some people might have the sun, moon, and ascendant in three signs, or they might have two of those three major proponents in one, and then a third in another sign. So there's a number of possibilities, but most people will have the sun, moon, and ascendant in different signs, and you could refer to all three signs when you're looking at your daily or monthly forecast to derive the best benefits of this. Now, and once you get that, you might want to learn just the signs in general, get a conception of the zodiac signs, understand the meaning of planets, because everybody has a sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, etc. Everybody has a planet in a sign, and they also have planets in houses. The houses in a chart represent sectors of a person's life. The planets are more, their energies with more actual characteristics. The houses are pretty much areas or facets or sections of a person's life, and planets that are in those houses do flavor the house. So those are some things to consider when you're first learning astrology. And there are so many nuances in astrology, it's not even funny. As extensive as I believe my knowledge of astrology is, I'm not one to be egotistical or arrogant. I know I don't know everything about the subject. I know a good amount of it, but there's so many things to learn in astrology. I mean, it is just not even funny. It is preposterous the amount of things one can learn associated with this. And pretty much, what you want to do is, when you get the general meaning of your own chart, the planets and the signs, the houses, the house cusp, there's going to be aspects between planets. There's going to be house rulers. And the thing is, one series of books I would really recommend is The Only Way. It's entitled The Only Way to Learn Astrology. It was written by Marion D. March and Joan McGivers, and that really gave me a good fundamental understanding of the subject. It's explained in a way where you can assimilate the information very easily. It's a very step-by-step methodical process, and since I have Taurus rising, that's fairly appropriate for me, and maybe that's why that series really worked for me. I read the first three. You had the basics in the first, and I think the second you had aspects. They may have been in the first as well. I don't remember exactly what each book had. The part 3 were the house rulers, I believe. I believe the second had a lot of aspects between at least the midheaven aspects, ascendant aspects. The first part had planets in the signs and planets in the houses, but I honestly can't remember where the aspects between the planets, if that was in part 1 or part 2. But that is one book I would strongly recommend. And to learn about your rising sign, I will tell you one book that was very profound and had I felt it was very deep. It was entitled The Rising Sign, and it's written by Jean Avery. And that book helped me immensely in understanding my own rising sign and understanding others, friends that I have, acquaintances. And that rising sign book really opened up a door for me as far as seeing other elements of my personality. And a lot of times when someone has a certain sun sign, they'll look at the characteristics and descriptions of it in various places, whether it's online, books, etc., and they'll be like, well, I don't understand. This doesn't seem to fit me. I don't look like this sign. I don't act like this sign. Somebody said that to me one day, and I said, you probably have a different ascendant or rising sign, and I explained to him what that was, that the ascendant or rising sign is the sign coming over the horizon at the time of birth. And he's like, oh, okay. And he was a sun in Taurus, but he had a completely different build. He was a really tall, lanky build, and he had a different ascendant. Now, he didn't have Gemini rising. I know that's what a lot of you think he had. But to be honest with you, I don't remember what it was 100%, but I know it wasn't Taurus. It was either Aquarius or Pisces. You would think Aquarius more based on that build as opposed to Pisces. But the thing is, the point is, there's a lot of people out there that have very superficial knowledge of the subject, and they say, well, what about my compatibility? Oh, I'm a Leo, so that means I'm going to just get along with I'll get along with Aries and Sagittarius well, and perhaps say Gemini and Libra, or when you look at a romantic significant other combination, they could say Aquarius could be the sign. But the reality is that it's so much more complex than just evaluating someone's sun sign, because you have Venus, which plays a role in relationships. If you're a Venus sign, say, is in someone's first house, and even if there's other elements that are not compatible, or your Venus is conjunct the person's ascendant, you might actually feel some compatibility with that person. So it's not just about, oh, is my sun sign is this, their sun sign is that. That means I'm either gonna get along or not get along. No. That's not the only thing. That plays a role, but you have to look at the personal planets, look at the ascendant, and as far as the intra-aspects go. So it really is just very intricate with a lot of nuances. And some other reading material that I would suggest, besides The Only Way to Learn Astrology, when you get a good conception of your own chart and how to calculate it, how to figure out others, you might be interested in planets in transit, how planets are affecting your own self. Planets in Transit by Robert Hand, I heard, is very good reading. So really, that's pretty much how I would go about learning astrology. And if you'd rather go online, I mean, you could Google astrology lessons, and I'm sure you'll get a multitude of results that'll come up, and you can really learn a lot from it. And even on my channel, I have exorbitant amount of videos. I have over 1,000 videos right now, and you could look at, I have the videos on the planets, all planets and signs, planets and houses, aspects between planets. I have the house rulers, like for example, ruler of the first house and the fifth house, and what that means. I have, really, there's just a lot on there that you can learn. You could also go, obviously, to other people that do YouTube astrology videos. They're going to have, that you can derive greater benefits, because you could hear their perceptions or perspectives on various things associated with astrology. And you can hear, because I would never recommend necessarily just learning from one person or going one source. You want to hear multiple sides of something, and I think astrology, this applies to astrology as well. You don't want to just be necessarily go with that one main person. There's some people that do, and they have a preference for that. Hey, that's their prerogative if that's what they want to do. But I would recommend going to other people that do YouTube astrology videos as well to derive better benefits. If you watch my videos, then you might want to go to some other people as well and hear their side as well. So it's really another book I want to get at. There's also a book called Secrets from a Stargazer's Notebook. It was written by Debbie Kempton Smith, and what it does is it puts kind of a facetious or flippant side to astrology interpretations. Now, they're very accurate, but they have a comical side to them, and it's written almost like in a colloquial way, if I'm saying that right. And I could remember, I have the moon in Gemini, and it said for moon in Gemini, it said, these people are little radios which jabber, jabber, jabber all day long. And it said something like, the difference is with a radio, you can always turn it off. And I really got a kick out of that book, and it was one of the first books I read as far as anything pertaining to astrology, and it brings back so many memories. That is a very fun book, and I would look at that one as well. There's also another book entitled The Round Art, and it's written by A.T. Mann. And what he does is, in the book, he goes into actual different appearances for every 5 degrees of the sign. Now, For Aries, he might have it, he writes it 0 to 5 degrees Aries, but I believe that's really 0 to 4 degrees and 59 minutes of arc. And then the next one really would represent the next phase, so to speak, would be Aries, 5 degrees to 9 degrees 59 minutes of arc, and so on and so forth. And they're going to give a different description of the person's appearance for every 5 degrees. So let's say somebody has Gemini rising at 12 degrees, they could go to Gemini and look at 10 to 15 degrees as far as Gemini goes, which really is 10. They're writing at 10 to 15 degrees, but I believe it really means 10 to 14 degrees 59 minutes of arc. So that is something to look at. And as far as material to enhance your knowledge of astrology. Now, another thing I would recommend, and even if you feel you've learned so much, if I haven't seen any lately, but I'm sure there's got to be at least one in magazine form. If you can subscribe to an astrology magazine, you're still going to learn various things perhaps that you don't already know, and you're going to get different vantage points or perspectives on certain things as well. And it just seems like the amount of knowledge you can assimilate and absorb in astrology is limitless. It seems like there's always something that comes up, and before you know it, somebody might discover some other planet or asteroid, and that might have an impact on a person's chart. So it seems like it's just kind of like being a perpetual learner and just keep never ceasing to learn. And if it's something you enjoy and have a passion for, you're going to want to keep learning it. You don't want to become complacent and just stick with the knowledge that you have inside of you. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment as far as how to learn astrology. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be continuing my duplicated sign series. 2 things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because a person astrologically is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.